Welcome to the Black Paper. My name is Ndukwe Onoha.
And I'm Chetawanze.
Cheta, you leave the UK and suddenly there are riots everywhere. What
And this
what
is the
what what
second
is
this is the second time it's happening actually.
can you
The,
please stop moving around, please?
see 2024 the South Hall thing happened. Was it South
Hmm.
Hall? Yeah. Oh God.
Southport.
Southport the Southport thing happened. Now I've left and you people have gone buck wild in Southampton and Belfast.
Look,
Ndukwe,
that's because
I saw a picture of you I saw a picture of you carrying jerry can.
even even in the home country where it was, I was not brave enough to carry J-Can to now be here, where if you do anyhow, you see anyhow. Oh, now got. But anyway, Cheta, it's good to be back. After a brief uh, interruption last week because the
Tell them
trip,
what
and
happened. You caught a cold.
I caught a cold. You were traveling, but man, I
You
had
people
I
should
had,
have,
I
you
had a
people should
man
have heard
flu.
Nzukwe's voice. You people should have heard Nzukwe's voice that time.
Oh, like it was crazy. In fact, I couldn't even attend, or rather, there was a training at the council. I went there, stayed for the first few hours. I knew that if I had stayed longer, I would have either passed out there or wouldn't have been able to drive home. So I
You
just
want some
came.
Zobo? You know it
Cheta,
helps.
Cheta, Waka. So yeah. There, just enjoy all the. You know what, Cheta? Let's talk about the business of today because now I'm
Okay, just
upset.
hold on for a second. Just hold on for a
If you
second.
bring if Cheta, if you show me groundnuts,
More Zobo. You can see the ice. There's also granite. Do I go and bring that one?
Cheta, see, don't worry. It is well, as we say, it is well. Anyway, how's Nigeria treating you?
There's a bit of pressure. Um, so we have some work targets that require all hands on deck. So my bosses are looking at me and are like, guy. So we and so we have some European clients that and I'm trying to say what I can without giving away anything.
Of
But
course.
yeah, so there's some European and UK clients that's um are a bit confused given um shifting supply chains and all of that stuff. And
Mm.
that's I think I should stop there before I start giving away stuff.
It's and that's a smart move. I'll say, because what you don't want to do is prejudice your ongoing relationship and work, and I think that's also the view we should take to our first discussion today, which would be the conversations or the fallout of two different issues: the release of body cam footage around Henry Nowak's murder, and the issue that has just happened in Belfast around um a Sudanese national who is here on an indefinite stay, but
Who
who in a crazy
who went mad?
who went mad. I think that's the best way. But I'm sure we can touch around the edges without prejudicing the case, because what we don't want to do is get ourselves into hot water for talking about an ongoing investigation.
Yeah,
But Cheta, over to you.
so I think the Henry Novak case, we can talk a fair bit about it. First things first, God rest the dead. Um,
Definitely.
for those who may not know, Henry Novak was an English boy of Polish descent, and I think it's important to put that out there. He was an English boy of Polish descent who was killed by a Sikh man, or an Englishman of the Sikh religion. Um, also the child of immigrants. So Henry Nowak's parents are immigrants. Um, but Henry Nowak is white or was white, God rest his soul.
Mm.
And the Sikhs are a religion in India. So the killer was brown. And the really bad part of the whole thing was there was an altercation. This chap stabbed Henry Nowak, and his brother, that's the murderer's brother, calls the police and accused Novak of racism.
Mm.
So when the police came, and it was night, and I think these are some of the things that have come out. When the police arrived, it was night, everywhere was dark. Novak was in a pool of his blood, but they didn't really see it. So he told them, I have been stabbed, and they didn't believe him, and he said they put him in handcuffs. Now, the the really sad part of it was, I mean, he died,
Mm.
and the according to the forensic pathologists who examined him, there wasn't much the police could have done when they arrived. Um, the judge said as much as well in his summation, and Henry Novak's father stood outside the court and was very clear that he did not want his son's death to be used as an opportunity to divide the country further. But immediately, Nigel Farage, and then followed by Tommy Robinson, made statements to provoke. Nigel Farage said, let us go out in cold rage. It's
Well,
not,
yeah, well, just so that we're sorry, but Nigel Farage said while the young man's father had called for calm, but to the rest of us, I'll suggest pure cold rage.
you're
I-
quoting him
I-
exactly. It's
I-
it's
yeah,
all the
yeah,
same
yeah,
thing.
yeah.
It's all the same thing from my point of view. The bottom line is he stoked the fire
Of course he did. Yeah.
deliberately. And from my own interpretation, there are two things here. Number one, he saw the perfect opportunity to deflect attention from his £5 million bribe thing. And I mean, simple and short, since this whole riot started, I haven't heard much about that. Um, Granted that I've been outside the UK for a bit since it started, but nevertheless, I've tried to keep my ear to the ground, and that seems to have disappeared from the news. So, objective achieved. Um, Tommy Robinson just wants anarchy. That's much I can say about him. So no surprises there. Um, so basically, these two fellows are taking advantage of deep-seated anxiety, strained public services, and the narrative that they have created that multicultural integration in the UK has failed. It doesn't matter to them, and this is one of the bitter ironies in the whole thing. When the same Nigel Farage was campaigning for Brexit a decade ago, he wanted the Polacks out. Now, a brown-skinned person has killed the child of Polacks, and suddenly the Polacks are our people. Essentially, for anybody who is thinking, this should show people what Farage and his menagerie are.
Mm, mm.
Now, we have to juxtapose it with what is happening in Belfast in Northern Ireland, because Belfast is in a place that has a history of trouble between different sectarian trouble between Catholics and Protestants. And in reading on what has been happening, I can see a religious divide emerging there. So Catholics appear to be supportive of the immigrants and all of that, while Protestants appear to be the ones doing the attacking. A Sudanese guy, so this is not an immigrant of Sudanese descent or the child of immigrant of
Mm.
Sudanese, it's a direct, he's an asylum seeker, and he was granted asylum or leave to remain in the UK by the Conservative government when I think it was Robert Jenrick
That was
that was in
immigration
charge
minister,
at
and
the time,
Sola Breverman was home secretary, so you couldn't make
was
this
Home
up.
Secretary. So
And sorry,
basically,
Chet, I just, for those who are wondering why I was mentioning these particular names, they are now the cheerleaders in reform,
in reform,
calling
who are calling
calling
names.
yeah, saying that the government has lost control of immigration and the conservatives lost control of immigration. So it is basically them. Think of it, I mean, the World Cup is going on. So think of it as one team scoring a goal, changing their jersey, or maybe one team scoring, causing an offside, changing their jersey, and then start pointing fingers at their own team members, saying, "Oh, that team has messed things up." When they were practically, the ones that did, and I know that it's my football analogy, can go so far, but
I just say, look here.
Braverman and Generic were at the two top people at the helm of
They were
immigration.
responsible for
They were
the
responsible.
guy coming into the UK.
Yeah.
End of story. So bottom line is, after the stabbing, disinformation spread online, which claims that he was a radical, that's the Sudanese guy, is a radical Islamist and all of that, despite the police issuing a statement saying, no, this is not the case. And it actually turns out that the chap he stabbed and him were, I think, drinking bodies, or they had something. But that's irrelevant. That's besides the point. You shouldn't go about stabbing people. Again, the far right has taken advantage and has triggered unrest, and we've now had very ugly scenes of people going about looking for people who are not whites
Mm.
and attacking their houses. I saw pictures of videos of vehicles on fire, and it's I mean, it reminded me of June 12 protests in
Mm.
Nigeria. Then in Scotland, there was a protest outside a hotel that that ended up with multiple arrests in a place called Greenock, I think, not too far from Edinburgh. So there was a woman who was charged with a hate crime as a result of that. See, the bottom line is, again, at the end of it, all of this is the far right stoking protests. That's people like Nigel Farage stoking anger in order to ride that anger to power. That's what it is. I think that further protests are likely. I think that the newly minted trillionaire is going to use his platform even more to stoke more of this division
Which is
and
what he
to
has been
stoke,
doing.
yeah, to and the I think part of the big failure from my point of view is the blunt failure of people like Keir Starmer to call it for what it is, especially where Elon Musk is concerned. Um, it's see, I think what Yvette Cooper should actually do is to proscribe some, for example, Tommy Robinson's group, proscribe them. Heaven will not fall. But at the end of the day, one magazine, it, and this is where they are failing the British government, um, because I think it was a British judge in the 18th or 19th century who said justice must be done even if the heaven falls. When you do it, when you are seen to be strong, justice must be done even if the heaven falls. People will check. The bottom line is, a lot of what is happening is because people have seen that they can push the government to step back, the government will step back. So they're taking more. Essentially, when you give an inch, people will end up taking a mile. And I mean, one of the more hilarious things that has come out of this is Nigeria and Kenya issued travel alerts to their citizens about the UK. Um, it's, I mean, it's it's something we can make fun of because, very unfortunately, too many of us from Nigeria don't take Nigeria seriously.
Mm.
But for once, our government has actually done the right thing.
Yeah.
Given that the rioters in Belfast were specifically looking for immigrants. Any responsible government
Uh,
should issue a travel alert.
and I was listening to one of the Times Radio podcasts today, and I think the Times itself had referred to the incident going on in Belfast as a pogrom. Uh, what for me was quite amazing was listening to the podcast host and guests trying to define whether it was right to be called a pogrom and what it might mean. And I just thought to myself, this is madness. People are being hunted down for just the color of their skin, never mind their legal status in the country, but the color of their skin determines whether they are going to be burnt out of their house or not.
Yeah,
And the
but it is
biggest
a pogrom.
concern, I know, but the biggest concern to these people was, oh my goodness, pogrom is such a strong word. And it also tells you how the conscience of the system has been so euthanized to the point where if it's not happening to me or people that look like me, then I can find language to excuse it. And it's also why people aren't looking at a Farage and saying, for goodness sake, this man is a down and out fascist. There's no way to sugarcoat it. And it's quite interesting because in 2021, following the murder, I'm sure you remember that, of Sarah Everard by a policeman, this same Farage came out and said, we can't taint all the police officers as bad. Please, be calm, because this was a white on white crime. But now the tables are turned. We see all these um, so-called rage. In a few months ago, a Sikh woman was raped by, if I remember correctly, I think reported to have been
She
raped by
was
about
raped.
three, yeah, by about
Yeah,
three white men. And Tommy Robinson and his rest, Tommy Robinson, who I regard as the equivalent of Farage's brown shirts, said nothing. But now this has happened, you know. There's been a report, I think yesterday or 2 days ago, about a white man that stabbed a woman in the neck. Everywhere is silent. So what we're seeing is a weaponization of random acts of violence to drive a political point. And yes, of course, you're correct. It's not just the £5 million question that Farage is trying to silence by all means possible, but it's also the question of Makerfield, because if you remember, all through the campaign for Makerfield, he had been silent until this event happened, and suddenly, seeing that Restore and that's Rupert Lowe's party, was eating into their vote share, he had to look for something to try and remind people that, look, I'm back, I'm the person you
I'm
should be
around.
looking at, I'm around, and in so doing skillfully dodged questions around their candidate's sexism, misogyny, and just downright just being a weird human being. And for me, that begs the question: should one man be allowed to play with the lives, because that is what he's doing? Should he be allowed to play with the lives of people for political expediency and just be left to just keep walking free?
And
Because
again,
if that was me or you that came out and said, I'm calling for a pure cold rage, whatever you call it, we will be picked up. Why is Farage
yes,
above the law? And he's one complaining about two-tier justice.
two-tier policing in a country where the vast majority of the police are whites. So we are having a front row seat to how democracy disintegrates.
Mm.
We have seen it before in the country that I'm sitting in the country that you escaped from. Uh,
Say escape.
it has happened before in so many other places. When standards begin to slip, when justice is no longer evenly applied, when some people are above the law, fascism becomes the order of the day. There are 2 points of failures here with respect to Farage. Number one, first and foremost, is the media.
Mm.
The media's consistent failing to call him out, all of this thing of pretending, and I'll go back to what I said in our very first episode, repeated a few times, but I haven't said it on this podcast for a bit now, which is the job of the media. If I say it is raining, and Ontukwe says it is not raining. By the way, it is raining heavy in Abuja right now.
It's not raining here.
Okay,
So good
I am
analogy.
correct. Very good. I am correct. So it is the job of the. It's not the job of the journalist to say Cheta said it is raining. Ontukwe said it is not raining. It is the job of the journalist to open the damned window and look outside, and then tell everybody what is actually happening. The failure of the media in the UK has been to, for 10 years now, or more than 10 years, because Nigel Farage did not drop in from the sky 10 years ago. For more than 10 years, they have been giving this man a platform, even though repeatedly he has been caught lying publicly. That's it. That is not what it was in this country as far as we knew in the past. Or at least that's not the vision of the country that was sold to us. And
Yeah.
the failure of his fellow politicians now is pure, and I've said it before, pure and naked cowardice. This man has done things that he can, that's at least there must be a charge somewhere. You can very easily link his statement about pure cold rage to the riots that have happened, and this is not the first time he did
Mm-hmm.
it. This one was even more brazen than what he did in Southport. In Southport, he just said, just this. I'm just asking. Then he was still cautious again. So which fits into what I said earlier about when you give an inch to take a mile. Then he was still cautious. Now he's more brazen because nothing has happened.
And that because I remember I think I saw someone either TikTok or Twitter, I don't remember where, but she was making the argument that a lot of this is happening now because the left always the response of the left to the violence of the right is reason. And she wasn't saying that this means call for violence, but at least, as you've said, lay down the law. There's law around incitement. There's law around, using that kind of language to get people to riot. And we're just about to start getting into the good weather. And we know the UK's history with riots and summer. And with Farage doubling down and saying, I fear that more may come. It's always, he knows how to thread a fine line, in his use of language to send out a dog whistle. I fear that more may happen. And we're already seeing it, and this was before Belfast. Now we have Belfast, we have Scotland. Come summer, if this man is allowed to continue to incite riots and violence against residents, we're going to have a lot more of that. But even
Food has not gone.
yeah, well, it's almost there. I've had some pepper soup. But beyond Farage naked incitement to violence is also our sister Kemi's naked opportunism when seeing that Farage seemed to have gotten the right, the appetite of the right, whetted. She suddenly has this press thing where she calls for the scrapping of the public sector equality duty. And this is a law that requires schools, hospitals, councils to actively consider how their decisions affect different groups. And Kemi, in making this argument, said, we have overreacted and actually brought in rules that are actually discriminatory. So equality law should be a shield, not a sword. So now she's blaming the law that makes it such that public bodies are able to consider their actions and the effect of their actions or disproportionate. I mean, if take a look at what we spoke about. I think it was the last episode when we spoke about the prostate cancer. If not for the act, the quality or the sector. Public sector equality
Oh, by
duty,
the
for
way,
instance.
sorry to interrupt. On
Yeah.
that, they walked it back.
Oh no, they did.
And I
That's what I'm
think
saying. They did walk it back.
the lesson, the lesson for our people is when you cry out, people will listen.
People will listen. But if not for that public sector equality duty, the government would not have said, wait, hang on, whilst the majority of the population is affected maybe in their late 50s or 60s, a certain group of people are affected from their 40s. So we should apply that thinking to how we address this community. Now, this woman is coming to say, well, because of one incident, let us scrap the law. But this was also the law that was used to make the case to establish that the Home Office breached its duty in how the hostile environment policy hits the Windrush generation and the Windrush scandal. So the question is, have we gotten into the place where all is fair in love and war, or politics and war, where politicians, as we said, Cheta, you made the point a few podcasts ago that this Labour administration is thinking too much of the next election. But now it seems everyone is thinking too much of the next election. So we will burn the house down if it means that perhaps we might just get a chance at, in the case of Conservatives, not even becoming the next government, it will be propping up the next government. But it's politics overtaking common sense now.
It's something that we've seen. It's a cassette that we've seen in this part so many times. So I won't comment further because we all know where it ends.
And following your decision not to comment further, Cheta, let's go for a break and come back and comment on something else entirely. What do you think?
No wahala.
Welcome back to the Black Paper. My name is Ndukwe Onoha.
Cheta Wanze.
Cheta, you're in Nigeria right now, and I'm willing to bet that one or two people who may know one or two people would have probably said to you, how do I move to the UK? Or how do I, are there any good universities that you can recommend? Or my brother or my sister is a nurse, and what is it like getting a job in the UK so that we can move? Will I be wrong to say that?
No, you're not wrong. And universities are still advertising here. That's British
Interesting.
universities. Yeah. So, um, I mean, Lagos is my base, and a couple of days ago, I think it was on Wednesday, um, I saw a fair, so I walked into Silverbird Galleria for something, and I saw a fair being held by the University of is it Coventry? Yes, it was Coventry. So they are still advertising, and people were there. This despite, but it's clear to me that I mean, the story that we're reacting to, and I'll leave you to talk about it a bit more because it's your government after all. But the story that we're reacting to is the fact that the UK government has sort of relaxed the salary thresholds on immigrations after raising it. And the only thing I have to say is, body never should.
The truth about this, Cheta, is it's the reactive nature of the approach to immigration, sadly, that we're seeing. Because anybody would have told anybody that
People told them when they did it.
Yeah, that when you don't have the number of people required to work in a sector, making it harder for those who already have the experience, who don't need to be trained for 2-3 years, to take up jobs in that sector, or to and incentivizing them by the visa, giving them the right type of visa and sponsorship that they need, for which they came here. That making it harder for them would affect your delivery. So and we saw this in not just in universities now, but we saw that in the prison service when the rules were made tougher the first time, and suddenly the prisons shouted, "Hang on, we don't have enough people to keep the HMPs running as they should." And then quietly the government relaxed that. And now you have universities, we already have, two that have merged. But in a country where international students pay twice and sometimes 3 times the amount in tuition fees that uh, uh, local students pay, suddenly making it hard for people to come through, to get the admission, to put money into the system, which will ultimately put more money into tax coffers, is a no-brainer that you're going to hurt yourself. But the bigger thing, Cheta, isn't so much about looking at the course correction in some of these decisions that are being made. The bigger thing
Just
is that because
let me pause your
Mm,
thoughts very briefly.
mm,
The I think see when you try to do course correction without acknowledging what, at least without publicly acknowledging what you're course
mm,
correcting, you can it just won't, it's just it won't fly. They
mm,
have to course correct. They know that they have to course correct, and it brings back what I said earlier: cowardice. Please
mm.
carry on.
Yeah, and but the point I want to make, and it goes back, it ties into what you've said now, is when you course correct and you don't make an argument for why you're course correcting, and you don't make an argument for why this was even done in the same place.
When there's no
What
transparency,
when there's yeah, what happens is you open the door for Nigel Farage to say they told us they were going to get a grip on immigration, but just look at what they've done behind the doors. They are lying to you, which is something that we have seen with reform. It's something that we have seen with the far right, always saying, oh, well, the government is not telling you the truth. But sadly, these U-turns, without making an argument, without making a case for saying this is why we need immigration in these sectors, this is why we can't, chase everyone away right now, then you're leaving yourself open, excuse me, to the allegations of just lying and having two-tier delivery of in the system, and that makes life harder for people like us, because we are now left to justify
we
our
are the political
existence.
football.
Yeah, we're the political football left to defend our rights to be here, when the government should have just said, hang on, if we chase all these people out, these are the vacancies that will automatically crop up overnight, for which we do not have the resources, the people to fill up. And for me, that is the frustrating thing. But it also leads back to the and you touched on that earlier before the break. It leads back to that conversation of the need to always just make our own argument, because right now no one is making that argument for us.
Yeah.
So how do we? I guess for me the question is, how do we make the argument? Because if the government is not making the argument, if reform is definitely making the argument against, if restore is saying that even if you were born here they should kick you out, through immigration, how do we then make the argument for us? And that is critical.
So there was a protest if a couple of days ago in Parliament. I saw the reports in passing, so I'm
Mm,
trying to remember the details. Um, but basically, it was people. So a lot of our people, there were a lot of Nigerians, and it was them basically telling the Home Office that you can't. We came here on a promise of a 5-year visa, 5 year to ILR, um, and you can't change the rules in the middle of the game. I mean, if we're talking about this topic next week, I would, because I read it in passing on June the 10th, so that was on Wednesday. So it was on Wednesday that it happened. Um, so it's important that such things happen, that people are beginning to speak up, as it were. Um, because at least one thing better than in our own neck of the woods, um, in the UK, the government is more responsive um, to to pressure when
mm,
people actually speak up and get their voices heard. As I've said before, one of the big issues that we tend to have as a people in that part of the world is we carry our um, we carry the fears that have been instilled in us by decades of very really bad governments, to these new countries, and we don't know how to engage government. We believe that, oh, when we try to engage the government, we will get repressed.
Mm.
So a lot of the work is in having to literally throw off that shackle and understand that you are in a place that is structurally democratic. At least has a much longer history of taking feedback than our own neck of the woods.
Yeah.
There's a very interesting Twitter guy on Twitter. He's of Greek descent, Thanos Angelopoulos. That I came across fairly recently. He tends to tweet numbers. And a couple of days ago, he tweeted some numbers about the deficiencies in the NHS, especially. That the deficiencies that, as in, he not only tweeted numbers, he tweeted media headlines about the number of vacancies in the NHS that could not be filled after after Brexit. So so one of the key the key things in everything is when people are able to bring numbers to support their argument.
Mm.
Of course, when he tweeted all of that, a lot of the right wingers who were attacking him kept quiet. They kept quiet because he came prepared and he came with the facts. So that's one thing that we need to do a lot more of, speaking with the facts and continue talking. It's
Mm.
very, very important.
It is. And I think as well, if you're in Belfast, going back to what we spoke about earlier, if you're in Belfast, if you're in Scotland, please try and stay safe, because
Let
um
me name check. Let me name check a friend of mine. Sean, please
mm,
stay safe. I've known
yeah,
you. I've known you since I was a child. So please stay safe. Your children are my children.
yeah, we, we, we do need to, people need to just, if you don't have to go out late at night, stay. And again, I would, well, the good thing is that we have brighter evenings now, but not to try and be an alarmist, but I'll say, if those evening services and night vigils are not, please, hold them online. But look out for your children. uh, I was thinking about this the other day, Cheta, and it just occurred to me, or rather, just going through it. This is how ghetto starts, because what
Yes,
happens is people will then say, "Well, I live in this
we're
part
safe.
of
We're
town."
safer with our kind.
Yeah. And then what you then see happen is, if you have a very a belligerent, well, no, but a hateful administration. I think that's the word. An administration that is overly hateful against people like you, they will stop investments in the part of
In
town,
those
because people
areas where
in
you
those
gather.
areas, yeah, and it's so painfully, the resemblance to the 1930s is so painful to see. But this is what, people move to one side, we get to start overcrowding, but because people are looking for strength in numbers, then you see a situation, and then turn round 10 years later, people will start saying, "Oh, you don't integrate, you don't want to be a part of us." But
It
what they
happened.
fail to
It
realize,
happened repeatedly in America. Redlining and all of that stuff.
no, but it's even happening here, which is why a general can go to Birmingham and say, "Oh, part of town where I didn't see any black face, or any white face
And
rather."
a white
But
face.
yeah, but that's because people are seeking protection in the familiar. People want to integrate, which is why they've come to live in your part of town anyway. But when you keep burning their houses, when you keep burning their places of worship, or you keep attacking them just for the color of their skin, they would go out, seek inclusive spaces, or seek communities where they feel safe. And before you know it, you have created a part of town, a part of the community that is so different demographically, that 10 years later, a generic
It's
will stand out with his mealy mouth to say, "There's no one that looks like me here," which means they are not integrating. It is a
and
vicious cycle.
yeah, it is a vicious cycle. It is a
Yeah.
vicious cycle. But for
Uh,
generic, the less
mm,
said, the better.
Oh yes, so please, if you're an institution that works within these communities, if you're a church, if you're a mosque, if you're a cultural institution, these are the times to open your doors. And I know that people are opening their doors. My goodness, one of the Gurdwaras, I visited a Gurdwara here some weeks ago. My goodness, just the sheer amount of of resources that they put into feeding people for free every single day, opening their spaces for people to just come and feel safe. It's lovely to see. And I would encourage our organizations, our community centers to start doing the same. And I hope this also opens your eyes to the need for community centers, for community spaces where people would not just find solace, but also find helpful information, because for a long time we have been so segregated alongside either faith or ethnic identities, that things like this, when these people start burning houses, no one is asking you, hang on, which part of this continent do you say you're from again? We're all the same. And perhaps if I can end, there's this Labaja song that always plays in my head. Is me and you no be enemy. We supposed to be family. Now waiting you they
Your
find, I they
Ndukwe,
find. Yeah.
Ndukwe. Wait, stop. I'm having ear pain.
No, but
Just no, wait,
to the
no,
background to that song is that
wait, wait,
Labaja said
wait,
that when
wait,
others look
wait,
at
wait,
us, no, Cheta, wait now.
wait,
He said
Ndukwe,
when others look like us, they don't ask you where you're
when
from.
did he? Um, I think just ask Madam Producer, please, as in, let's fade out with the proper singer, please. But I don't think they heard it this evening.
Cheta, there will be no slander about my singing allowed here.
Huh? You don't
No.
have talents. Yeah.
Cheta, my singing will not be slandered. Do you know I used to be in the church choir. In fact, I used
There's a
to
reason they
on
kicked you out.
campus. On campus, I used to lead the choir. Well, assist in leading the choir anyway. But
So
anyway,
in 1 second, you've downgraded.
but seriously, when other communities look at us, no one is looking at you and saying, "Oh, this guy is Nigerian or he's Zimbabwean or he's even Sri Lankan or Indian or whatever." They just look at you and say, "You're not, you're not white," and that is
You're not
Reform's
from here.
message, and that is
And
Restore's message.
the story
And
of Ngozi Fulani comes to mind.
where are your people from?
Yes.
Oh my goodness! But look, man. Thanks, Chita, for jumping on this one. I know it's a quick one, but we just had to talk about a lot of these
Yeah.
issues. And
And
please be
get
safe
well,
out
so.
there.
Mhm.
Thank you, thank you.
Get well, so.
And Chita, if you don't
All
come
right.
back with Zobo, me and you will have problem.
Is that a threat?
It's a threat. If you don't come
Okay.
back with Zobo,
You know what's going to happen. I will
mm,
come back with Zobo, and then I'll video call you and I will drink it.
thank God I know your wife. I will just call her and say, look, you know what? When as that man is walking through the door, please collect my own Zobo from him and just keep.
I will drink it in front of her.
I dare you.
Bet.
See you at the next one.
See you at the next one.